guys, in this lesson we'll be treating basic concepts in ecology. So first we'll start by an introduction. Ecology is a branch of biology that tries to examine how organisms interact with one another and also how they interact with their environment. So when you hear the word ecology, it's a term that is trying to refer to the part of biology that is involved in the study of organisms as they interact with one another and also with their environment. It involves the study of ecosystems, populations, communities, and also processes that govern the flow of energy and nutrients. So understanding ecological concept is crucial for determining biodiversity and also addressing environmental challenges. So let's see more about this. The term ecosystem actually refers to biological community. So it was gotten from the word ecology was gotten from eco meaning the environment, then logy meaning the study. So the study of the environment and the ecosystem generally. That's what it means. So now zooming into ecosystem, it refers to biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. So when you hear the word ecosystem, you're trying to talk about organisms and how they interact with their environment. So ecosystems can be as large as a rainforest or as small as a pond. So each ecosystem includes biotic components like plants, animal, microorganisms, and also abiotic components like sunlight, water, and soil. So that's actually how we make up an ecosystem, not just the organisms involved, but also their environment or their surrounding, the factors that are present in their surrounding. So let's see. The concept of a population in ecology refers to a group of individuals of the same species living in a particular geographic area. So when you hear population in ecology, or when you mention population and you are referring to it in terms of ecology, you're talking about similar species individuals. It could be organisms, any of organisms or even plants, but found in the same geographical region. So they are of the same species and in the same geographical region. So populations are studied in terms of size, distribution, density, and also dynamics. Also their birth and death rates is also studied, as well as their migration patterns. So a community consists of all populations of different species. So I'm trying to define what a community is in terms of ecology. So a community consists of all the populations of different species that live and interact within a given area. So when you talk about a community, you cannot rule off the fact that you're talking about species, different species organisms interacting with one another in a given area. So different species organisms. So this is different from the previous slide which we had. In the previous slide we talked about population. So when you're talking about population, you're talking about the same species in a particular area. So now when you're talking about community, now you're talking about different species that live in the same area and how they interact. So the structure of a community depends on species diversity, abundance, and the type of interaction that occurs among the species, such as the competition and also the predation pattern, also even migration. So let's see energy flow in ecosystem. So let's see how energy flow within an ecosystem. So there are always these three major categories of energy flow or of organisms within an ecosystem. There are those that they call the producers, there's the other they call the consumers, and the other what they call the decomposers. So the producers, they are green plants. These are organisms or plants that convert solar energy into chemical energy and use it for their own food. So they generate their own food themselves and they generate their energy. They get energy to produce this food themselves from the sun. So when they get energy from the sun, they use it to convert into food and also use this food to grow themselves through photosynthesis. So these organisms, they are like the beginning of the energy flow. They are like the beginning. So the next organism sets are known as consumers. So these consumers, they carry out energy transfer. They could be herbivorous or carnivorous. So how does it move from herbivorous to carnivorous? With most herbivorous animals or herbivorous organisms, they eat the producers, and once they eat the producers, what happens next? They are being devoured by the carnivorous. They are being devoured by the carnivorous. So this is how energy is being transferred. So green plants, they generate the energy. They generate the energy through food, through being food, and herbivorous animals eat these green plants. Then these herbivorous animals are then eaten by carnivorous animals. So when these carnivorous animals die, their body become their body begin to decay, and some other organisms that are called decomposers then feed on these decayed or dead bodies of the consumers. So when these consumers die, decomposers try to break down the dead material and recycle the nutrients. So when they break down this material, they would recycle the nutrient. So let's see, this that's actually the energy flow, how energy flows in an ecosystem. So now let's look into what they call the nutrient cycling. So nutrient cycling involves the movement and exchange of organic and inorganic matter back into the production of living matter. So it involves the movement rather and exchange of organic and inorganic matter back into the production of living matter. So how organic and inorganic matter are brought back into the production of living matter. So cycles such as the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and also water cycle are essential for sustaining life by maintaining ecosystem balance. So there is what we know as the carbon cycle, there's also what we know as the nitrogen cycle, and also the water cycle. So these cycles show how water flows from the cloud down to the earth and back up to the cloud. Also how nitrogen is being generated from the cloud down to the earth and also back to the cloud. Also the same thing applies with carbon. So this is actually what these cycles are talking about. So later on we'll go in details about each of these cycles. So let's see. In conclusion, basic ecological concepts such as ecosystem, population, community, energy flow, and nutrient cycling, they form the foundation of ecological studies. So when you talk about ecological study or talk about ecology, you would need to know these terms. You need to know them very well. So when you're talking about ecology, you need to know what an ecosystem is, you need to know what a population is, you need to know what a community is, you need to be able to define how energy flows within an ecosystem, and also the nutrient cycling. So these principles help scientists to understand and solve environmental issues, managing natural resources, and also to conserve biodiversity. So that's all for this lesson, and I'll be saying bye.